I'm Kyler Salisbury, and I'm the lawyer on this case. I chose the prosecuting side, and today you're going to find out about Nevaeh Haslett and what happened in the back of Mr. Speller's classroom. Now let's meet the rest of our team. Now let's hear from our first responder, Elijah Palmer. Take it away, Elijah.
I'm Elijah Palmer, and I am the first responder for this case. It was clearly a lot of evidence, but due to the circumstances of the bodies and the size of the room, I decided that me and my team were going to go in using the spiral investigation technique, because besides the obvious clues and things that you see, most of the unfound things were hidden in a circular pattern around both of the bodies and around the room. So I felt like that was the most, that was going to be the most effective method in finding everything possible.
As soon as I entered, the first thing I saw was big bloody footprints clearly exiting the crime scene, and a lot of blood, specifically coming from the first victim. Most of the visible blood was by the entrance, so as soon as you walk in, you could see blood spatters all over the walls and cabinets. While the victims were in the same room and were pretty close to each other, there were barely any similarities with the bodies at all. The first victim was surrounded by way more blood, and it was obvious that the blood on the walls and cabinets had come from this one. Not to mention that body was face down. The furthest body was lying on his back and didn't have nearly as much blood as the first one. While examining the second body, I noticed his broom lying under him and naturally assumed that it had something to do with what took place in the room, but there was no blood or anything indicating that it had anything to do with any of the murders. But there had to be a weapon involved, so I did come across this bloody hammer in one of the lower cabinets, and there was a bullet just a few feet away from the first victim. While walking around, we did come across a lot of different hairs and a lot of different textures, but none of them really stood out until we looked closely at the furthest victim's sweater, and we noticed a big piece of green hair laying on the sweater, and this piece was way bigger than the other hairs. And since I was down there, I did notice all the marks around the face, around the neck, and the blood coming out of the mouth, and how dark the eyes were. These things clearly had nothing to do with the hammer or the bullet. But that was not all, because looking under the head, there was clearly exit spatter of the blood and brains coming out of the wound. There was blood spatter in every corner of the room, different types, different sizes, from different causes. But after noticing everything I could under the regular light, I decided to go back in with the black light and notice blood smeared across all different surfaces. A lot of it was unclear to us because of the lack of significance shown, but we noticed a possible letter drawn on one of the cabinets. And something that is undeniable was a "Thanks Dad" written on the door. Overall, after a closer examination, we were a step closer to piecing together exactly what happened to both of these male bodies.
I wonder what Noel would have to say about all of that. Let's listen to our forensic scientist.
In the crime scene, there were two male bodies discovered. The first victim was a teenage boy between the ages of 16 to 18, lying face down. He had on a blue and white striped shirt, black pants, pink pumas, and DIY bracelets. He has a gunshot wound on the front of his head with blood spatter and brain matter on the wall in front of him and under his head where he laid. In the cabinet on the wall near him was a bloody hammer, and on the far right of him was a bullet casing on the ground. The first victim's youth-like clothing gave an indication to his young age. The DIY bracelets usually made for friendships and relationships were also a clear indicator. These bracelets he wore were very similar to a bracelet that Nevaeh Haslett wears and shows the potential connection between the two. The second victim was a middle-aged man, roughly between the ages of 40 to 50. He had on a blue sweatshirt, black pants with white stripes down the side, and brown combat boots. There was blood on his face and bruising on his neck. On his sweatshirt was curly green hair, near his legs was a mop, and surrounding him were bloody footprints. When examining the hair found on him, its characteristics matched that of Nevaeh Haslett. The second victim's worn and beaten clothes was an indication of his older age. His clothing also showed that whatever he was doing, he wanted to be comfortable. I can infer that between his clothing choices and the mop near his body, that he was a janitor at that school. When going over the crime scene with the black light, We found things invisible to the human eye. There were random streaks and smudges on the floor and cabinets that didn't mean much. But on the back of the room door read, "Thanks, Dad," and on a cabinet door were the smudged letters in H, Nevaeh Hazlitt's initials. When looking at the green hair found on the older victim's body under a microscope, besides Nevaeh's obvious green hair, we also found traces of what we thought was dog hair. This was confirmed when we found out our main suspect, Nevaeh Hazlitt, owns a dog.
Now let's hear from Jalen and Nate so we can figure out the cause of death and what really was going on in that crime scene.
Hello, my name is Jalen Castillo and I'm the forensic architect for this case. For this case, I decided to make a 2D rendition or drawing of the crime scene, as I thought it would be a pretty simple but also easy to understand way of depicting many different details and accurately portraying this case. Looking closer at the crime itself, you can see that there are various factors that highlight and showcase the struggle between both victim and perpetrator, as well as kind of make out like a brief timeline of event. Looking closer, you can see that there are two dead bodies, one facing downward in a pool of blood and the other one facing upwards. For the one facing downwards, we can safely assume that he was shot in the back of the head by the fact that he is facing downward in a pool of blood, assuming that the entrance wound, or rather the exit wound, is at the front of his head, which is why the pool of blood is, by his head. We can say that because of various factors, including a bullet casing in the top left corner of the room. And for the second body, we can assume that he was strangled, as per his bloodshot eyes and the marks around his neck. Now, various other factors at the scene of the crime include various handprints and footprints and blood splatter, as well as a bloody hammer located in one of the cabinets, which we can assume was used on one of the victims. With that being said, there's another aspect of this case that I've yet to cover, that being blacklight. Under the use of blacklight, the crime scene changes, as shown by these drawings, to include more information and evidence, including new factors like more blood stains, whether that be fingerprints and various streaks and marks of blood, as well as a N on a cabinet, possibly linking it to a student in the class, and a message written in blood on the entrance door that says, "Thank you, Dad."
Hello, my name is Nathan Kane, and I'm the forensic pathologist assigned to this case. The first victim died from a gunshot wound to the head, in which the bullet had struck the back lobe of the brain, the part of the brain where the occipital lobe is located at, along with the bullet exiting out of the frontal lobe of the brain, where the Burkhardt lobe is located at. That's the first victim, and there's no any other evidence or causes of death other than the gunshot wound to the head on the first victim. Now, on the second victim, died resulting from being struck in the head with a blunt object. Could be a hammer or like a bat, anything along the lines of that, in which the victim resulted from choking on his own blood, drowning in his own blood, and then also dying from asphyxiation due to the blackened eyes on the victim and the bruising around the neck. That's most likely due from choking or strangulation.
I wonder how Nevaeh was acting throughout all of this. Let's hear it from Caleb.
Good morning, my name is Caleb Oldman, and I am the lead forensic psychologist of my group. After analyzing my lead suspect, Nevaeh Hazlitt, I have concluded that she is a sociopath due to her sexually abusive relationship with both her father and boyfriend. Nevaeh also has a split personality disorder, which may come from early environmental trauma, which is another sign of a sociopathic person. Sociopaths are known to have unstable lives, which Nevaeh has due to her being molested by both her father and boyfriend. Beginning, Nevaeh showed many signs of nervousness and mental stress, as she would be caught biting her nails constantly and doing a lot of fidgeting during interrogation. Nail biting is a sign of mental stress, which there is no doubt that Nevaeh had, while slight hand and feet movements are a sign of nervousness. Her alter ego named Stargirl is who really does the dirty work as Nevaeh blacks out in times of anger.
Okay, hi Nevaeh. This is your full confession. So I need every single detail. Do not leave one part out.
Okay. So I was coming over here from practice. I want to talk to my dad or something, but then I heard my boyfriend, my dad arguing. So I went into the room, and then I seen my boyfriend pick up the hammer. Well, he had a hammer, he picked it up, and then he hit my dad in the head with the hammer. And then, well, Stargirl, cause yeah. And I choked him. I went down. I choked him to death. Made sure he was dead. I got up. My boyfriend panicked. He put the hammer in the cabinet, and then he turned around. And once he turned around, I took the gun and I just fouled in the back of the head. And that's when I came back. After I heard the boom, I came back to Nevaeh and I started panicking, and then I ran out crying, and I ran through the gun, and I went home, cleaned up, and came back to school.
So is the gun your father's gun?
Yes.
That's how he got into the school, since he's the school janitor?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, it's my turn. Now let's hear from your favorite prosecuting attorney. Following the Nevaeh Haslett murder trial, Ms. Haslett should be tried as an adult and is hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison and 5 years in a mental institution. My reasoning for this sentencing is in regards to her blackouts and past trauma. Ms. Haslett is a threat in society and should not be placed in any environment that may cause blacking out. In the mental institute, Haslett will be able to unpack any trauma and work with a therapist regarding her alter ego. Stargirl. Nevaeh Haslett will be under heavy support in hopes of helping her gateway through her mental well-being. A CPS investigation should be done. It should not be easy for a student to murder anyone inside of the school. CPS should have better safety control for both staff and students. Doing so would stop murder and dangerous conflict inside of school buildings. I'm gonna put that in my bloopers. Please don't be interrogated by the police.
That's just jealous that I'm smarter than her.
Oh my god. Do you know the two?
I mean, I'm white. I would never do something like that.
What the fuck?
I would never murder someone like that.
That's an interesting take.
I don't know if that's true. I'm sorry, but what? Bro, Elijah, you're actually hilarious.